what defines you. Well, good morning, I'm Nicky Campbell. Welcome to The Big Questions. Today we're live from Hutcheson's Grammar School in Glasgow. Welcome, everybody, to The Big Questions. So, most of us have multiple identities. Take me, I'm a father, husband, son, brother. I'm a journalist, presenter. I've got Irish genes, but I'm Scottish. I'm British, European, proud to be part of the Northern Hemisphere. Like everyone else here, my ancestors came out of Africa. When I'm watching football or rugby, Scottish. But sometimes circumstances can change your identity without your consent. And that's what happened to the Sikhs in the Punjab. In 1947, after partition, they became Indians, whether they liked it or not. Now, some of those Sikhs who came to Britain want to stop being regarded as Indians in the next British Census, which is due in 2021. They want their ethnicity to be recorded as Sikh, which is their faith. So they feel Sikh, not Indian. It's a feeling many people in Scotland share, where we are today. Surveys show 61% strongly feel Scottish, only a quarter strongly feel British. And here in Glasgow, which school you went to, which football team you support, speaks volumes about your religious allegiances too. So are you defined by your country or your faith? I'm going to get right in amongst our audience to find out exactly how you define themselves, what your identity is. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. It is multi-layered. Ranveer, welcome to The Big Questions. Good morning. Right, in the 2021 census, you want a specific box to tick in the ethnicity section for Sikh. Why?
I do, yes. There are a number of reasons for why I believe that. But for me, the primary and the most compelling reason is the fact that if you look at the Sikh way of life, we speak about this idea of a shared cultural heritage. That is there from our history, from what the Gurus did, from what they initiated, various institutions.
From the 16th century
Exactly, from the 15th century onwards. And we have that. We have a shared language. You can pinpoint on a map, geographically speaking, from where we originated, the Gurmukhi script. So there are reasons there. But also the fact that from the last census in 2011, there were 83,000 Sikh who refused to tick the Indian box, and they asserted their identity as Sikhs by ticking other and writing Sikh.
So you are an ethnicity?
Yes, I believe we are. Yes, yeah. Based on our own history and from what our own academics and scholars have written. And I think this is part of the problem, because the Sikh way of life is seen as just a religion. That is certainly an element of it, but there's also the socio-political aspect, which gives rise to this separate identity, distinct and distinguishable.
Do you feel British?
It's a tough question.
I'm going to be asking a few people that question.
If you'd asked me that question a few years ago, I perhaps would have said yes. Yeah. But having learned what I have done over the last 5 years about British colonialism and the exploitation, I don't know where I stand with that. So I can't say to you that. Well,
it's not the Britain today. The Britain
it's not. No, and I was born.
On.
Of course, and I was born and bred here. Yeah. I speak the language. I was educated here. Yeah. So certainly I can identify with certain elements of it: music, art, sports. But I can't ignore the history there as well.
What team do you support?
I support Chelsea.
Jonathan Romain, this ethnic tick box for Sikhs, is it a step forward, Rabbi?
I'm very surprised, to be honest, because, yes, once upon a time, maybe 200 years ago, that would have been appropriate when you were living in the same country, the same landscape, same literature. But things have changed, things have moved on. I mean, just the same as for the Jewish community, because, I mean, there are Sikhs, for instance, who are now marrying non-Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, whatever. Plus, of course, there are other people who are marrying into the Sikh tradition. They're bringing a whole new world view. And of course, your children, and certainly your grandchildren, are going to have a very different perspective from your great-grandfather. Plus, to be honest, if you're in England, then surely you should be integrating into wider society, just like the Jewish community ought to be. Plus, from a religious point of view, it seems to me very questionable, because surely you're children of God, you're citizens of the universe, you'll have a common humanity, and therefore you don't want to sort of box yourself away into a separate category.
It's not so much for me about boxing ourselves away. It's more so about the preservation of our distinct identity. And when we're forced to tick Indian, that itself is quite problematic, given the resistance that the Sikh nation has had against the Indian state since 47. And we all know of the events of 84 over the last 30 years. So for me, it's coming from the perspective of preserving our distinct way of life.
Why didn't
and that goes beyond just religion.
the English box? for race or nationality, but for religion, I'm Jewish. And it's not an either-or, it's a both-and.
But
that's the wonderful thing about this country. In fact, I would say, to be honest, this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 countries in the world where you can have your both be Jewish and English.
Isn't it about acknowledging how people feel about themselves, how they define themselves, and in a diverse and pluralistic Britain, we need to give them that option. You don't approve of it, do you, Hardeep?
No, so we think the ONS made the right decision to reject the proposals around a separate Sikh ethnic tick box in the white paper. Primary reason for this is the founder of Sikhism travelled around Sri Lanka, India, the Middle East and promoted a very simple message of humanity being one. So we feel this sort of flies in the face of the sort of foundational beliefs of Sikhism. Secondly, you know, faith is a choice. It can change. One day you could be a Mormon, the next day you could decide you fancy being a Moonie.
It's quite a switch.
It's quite a switch. But ethnicity is immutable. It cannot change.
What's your ethnicity?
So I would describe myself as Indian in the census and would be ticking that in the next census.
Yeah. Shipla, what do you think? Should there be, as a Hindu, an ethnic box for Sikhs? Or what should they put?
They should put Indian, I would say. The reason is, for me, ethnicity means where you come from. As of today, Sikh is not a place, not a piece of land, and not where you come from. That is, Sikhism, okay, I can understand it's the way of life, perhaps, but still it's not where you come from. So, as a religion, yes, I agree with the Rabbi that as religion you can put Sikh, but ethnicity should be Indian till, if it comes that you have a separate piece of land in the future, if it happens.
That's an interesting point of view, and I think you mentioned about how the founder travelled across all parts of South Asia. But don't forget, he then returns to Punjab, sets up a specific base from Kartarpur, and then initiates a Sikh movement. And this is the problem I think you alluded to earlier about us being just a religion. That in itself is a colonial imposition, because that is how you've defined the Sikh people. So for me, it's hugely problematic, because when I said earlier, when I read accounts of our own scholars, contemporaries of the Gurus, and the way in which they describe, so there's this idea in the Sikh community of this Vakri Qaum or Niyarapan. That is not saying that we are a distinct religion.
Is it such a problem to put Indian?
Identity. India over the last 30 years has been repressing Sikhs for, on various accounts. You look at how can I identify with a nationality that has oppressed my people?
I do not agree with that. I have close personal friends and family. In fact, my grandparents are from Lahore, so they had to leave everything there and they were forced to come to Delhi at Pashiji time. Yes, I have a deep wound of that, but do we keep harping on that or we move on?
Harping, wow.
No, that's what I think, that we have to move on with that, about colonialism or whatever. As you said, Britain today is not the same people. Everybody's trying to make peace and live forward. So that's what...